Hello, good evening and welcome to Business and Enterprise. As you can see, it's not Colin Colgan this evening. Apologies, he's unable to attend, and we hope that all in his care is well, and we send our regards. But tonight, I'm Brian Daly, and we have a guest who is no stranger to Business and Enterprise, the former presenter, and a special guest here tonight to talk about quite a number of issues that's relevant to both business and to enterprise, Mr. Hugh Leddy.
Good evening, Brian. How are you?
Hugh, welcome to the show.
Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back,
Yeah.
And you're in a different seat tonight.
A different seat this time, yes, indeed.
Yeah, well, things have changed even in the short time from you presented the show.
Yes, there's of course it's a wee bit longer than we had planned, is the insolvency legislation one. That's one of the most talked about points in Ireland at the moment. It was actually signed into law on since New Year's Eve, and the last weekend, the same day as the election, coincidentally or else, in Meath, where Miss McEntee got elected, the guidelines for what we call affordable living has now been issued. Oh. And that's going to come into play in the next couple of weeks. It's definitely going to be in by the summertime. And also now has been the Dunn judgment from the High Court. That's where family homes couldn't have been repossessed. Got to do it. Well,
maybe yeah. Hugh, before, actually, that's very detailed, and it's of interest to a lot of people because there's a few topics we'll discuss a little bit later on. But this year was a very important year, November of last year was very important for you because you had the launch of your book, which was a culmination of a good number of years of assembling a lot of information together.
Yeah. 2 years work, 2.5 years work, and that's part of the plan and the programme, and it launched on the 25th of November. As you know, Cavan TV was out there in the Kilmore on the 25th of November, and thankfully sales went very well. It done very well, only for sale locally. I didn't go nationally with it for a number of reasons.
Well, we actually have, we attended the launch, and it was well attended, and there was a lot of tributes paid to you. So we have a small piece of video I caught up with you after the launch.
Right.
Maybe. Hugh, a long road, but final culmination today and a fantastic launch of your book.
Yeah, Brian, it is indeed a fantastic day for me. The launch of the I'm celebrating 3 years off the dole today, and that's the date I set for the book. That's when I signed off the dole on the 25th of November 2009. So it's not coincidental. It was planned that it would be this day. I targeted that for the launch of the book, and I'm here, and I'm very delighted to have launched it.
And a lot of tributes today to you from people in the area, and you're also contributing some of the proceeds to some of the local charities.
Yep.
So it is making an impact due to sales, and your background a lot of people mightn't have known, but they certainly know today your grit and determination.
Yes, and I hope to spread that. It's great to be able to get out and do it. You know, I mean, you suffer setbacks in life, but you just got to get up and go on. As I said, no one else will do it for you, so you got to go and do it yourself. And I hope next year to provide that inspiration and facility for other people as well. Because there's some people in a very dark place that don't have maybe the inspiration that I have. You know, they're lacking very little, but that little bit of extra help is what I hope to provide.
And of course we at Cavan TV are very lucky because you're the former presenter of Business and Enterprise, which is going on to success under a new captain, but you were the original captain and you put us in very good stead.
Well, I mean, I still believe that I'm part of that business team in Cavan TV, and I kind of, when we, that first phase to get it up and running, and then I went to do the book because the book took a lot of time, but I have a great interest in business and Cavan TV, and like me and Cavan TV, we could just be all taken off at the same time.
Well, it's great to be part of the book launch today and your continued success. So until maybe the next book, Hugh?
Well, it'll be a wee while. I have a lot of things to do before that, but yes, definitely, I would never rule out. Writing another book. Never say never, but this is 12, 18 months, 2 years that'll do me for now, and I look upon it as a CV and a business card as much as that when you go out there.
Right. Well, so that's it from. Well, that was a very successful evening, Hugh, and as we said, a lot has changed for you since that time. Maybe you just talk about after the launch, how things have developed for you.
Yeah, well, thankfully I've got a job. I'm one of the lucky few, went out. I'm involved in sales now on the road, and it's going, quite well in the current climate. And the book has, done its course, and I'm developing the website now, which I hope to have up and running this summer. And the website called deathrow.ie, it'll be a connecting point for people in debt. That's my plan to. I suppose best description I can give for the most basic description is that it'll be a dating agency for people in debt, where people in debt can log on and look to get help.
Yeah, so you had a vision for the book, and you saw the culmination of that with the launch, and you have a vision for deathrow.ie. So now you're seeing that coming into place.
Yes, well, I mean, the book, it's incredible. The book was very well received, but what I find the most fascinating thing of it is when you produce a book, or say you've written a book, right? People's attitude changes dramatically. You've moved up at least one or two notches on the ladder, so to speak, in credibility, as that you were able to deliver. What's in the book is another day's whether people like the story or whether they don't. But I got it. It was very well received, and that's my plan heading into the summer, because Ireland, I suppose, in reality, Ireland is now facing what could be clearly termed the biggest challenge since the foundation of the state. And as we see what happened in Cyprus, everything can change in a weekend. But I think Ireland is ahead of the game, that what they put in place, like whoever's in power or not in power, or vice versa, it's irrelevant. It's the state and the setup we find ourselves in. I suppose
we better stress to our viewers that it's actually DEBT .ie is as opposed to Death Row. It's not a euthanasia group or anything, Hugh.
Death Row,
it's for people who have experienced financial debt over time, and how to look at it differently, and how to work and try and resolve those issues.
Yeah, and there's loads of help out there, but it's amazing when you connect with other people. That's my plan. It won't be, I'll be having as much information as possible. I'm not a financial advisor, don't intend to be, but it's incredible. The Irish are one of the most helpful nations in the world. Now is a chance to help their own.
And where, of course, Philip Doherty had success with the begrudgers. You know how things that's of a local nature, or there's a high component of begrudgery whenever people see people doing well, or sometimes when something goes wrong for people. How would you see, what you're doing now? Have you moved out of that realm, where some people would be critical, or some people, would say, oh, sure, look, it serves them right, or various things. Have you seen that sort of change?
Definitely. You're going to come across that, but you have to be, and from looking from the inside out, you have no choice but go by that. Because when you're caught in that situation, you can only think positive. Thinking negative or talking to negative people. But by and large, the Irish, you'll come across a small amount of that, but you're going to get nothing unless you ask. Right. People's not going to knock your door. You got to knock theirs. If you want a favour done, if you want a bit of a help on something, as in any type of business, get out there and ask. You may not get what you want, but you certainly have less chance.
So you probably experienced that a little bit when you're producing your book, and say, what the hell do you want to be writing a book for, and why, and what are you doing this for? So, and now you have the book, and probably maybe the same people saying, well done, Hugh, that was a great job.
Yes, definitely, but it's definitely with debt, it's a very, very sensitive subject. People by and large are saying, well, thank God it's not me. But at the same time, they're not, because, we got to look at it. If it happened to you 20 years ago, you were in the minority. Now there are so many people affected by it, and as you see, suicide is on the rise. Family home evictions are starting to come in, and I mean, we haven't seen that in Ireland virtually since the foundation of the state.
And some people might actually mask the fact that people, they might have a car and they can't sell it, but it might seem like a very souped up car, some type of thing, so that people say, oh gee, they're doing well, but it could be masking something that
a bigger problem in the background. Certainly is, but people having to adjust, as we know with this new legislation. Is quite controversial last week about what you're going to be able to afford, what you're going to be allowed to get. There has to be guidelines, because we're coming back to the same thing. If one person has struggled to pay their debts, well then another person can't get away scot-free, and that's a fair enough.
But the whole company law legislation legislation and what you were talking about that has changed last week, that has made or is going to make a difference nearly from now on, as opposed to what happened in the past. So would you have found that, you know, where the reason why you'd written the book, because you got into difficulties, if that, say, the current legislation had been in place, would you find that maybe yourself and lots of others mightn't necessarily be in the difficulties that they're in now?
To a point, if there had to be tighter legislation on lending the money, you know, we wouldn't have got as much money. The new legislation is in now, and what that difference would that have made was it would have speeded up to how you correct it. Right, but you're going to have that term, be it 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, some people maybe 10 maximum, because that's what it is now. That wasn't there until now. It is now, it's an accepted fact, and you're not on your own, you're not in hundreds, there's tens of thousands of people going to be in the same situation. But you certainly need to engage and get going and generate money. How much you're going to generate relevant to your debt, it depends, as we see with Sean Dunn scenario. You know, his argument is that he had to go to America to avoid persecution by the Irish banking system. Others would say that he ran away. They could talk about it until ever, and there's different points of view on it. You know, but there's one thing for certain: people has to get on with their lives, and what's left behind is left behind. It has to be dealt with as well as possible.
Yeah. So with the changes, it's going to eventually make. But while there would have been laws and legislation, and some of them weren't enforced. So would you feel even that with the changes, unless they're actually rigorously monitored and enforced, it could still...
Well, there's still going to be, you know, it's going to be down to, what would I call it, being enforced is one thing, but the biggest problem in Ireland at the minute is people physically have not got the money. You can enforce the law all you like and the rules and regulations. So if the €50 a week is awarded against somebody that has only 20 coming in, and we're just taking them as a basic figure, the reality is if they haven't got it. Now, the other side of the coin is there's people and they simply are very good with money and they will not part with it, and they are going to drag the system out. So at least the legislation is there. We have a court system, you know, and it's not actually, the new legislation now is not going through the courts. It's going to be outside the court system with a judiciary in charge of it, right?
Yeah, but we say now where white collar crime, it's well chronicled in national media, where there's very, very few jail sentences or very few convictions for white collar crime, but yet now the current legislation, people are going to be turfed out of the houses with repossessions at the bank. The legislation is changing so that's going to be on the increase where they were protected before. So would you feel that without adjusting one, you know, that it seems to be the person at the end of the line suffers most nearly all the time? But would you feel that there should be a change in enforcement at both sides?
Yes, certainly something that I personally or the ordinary person in the street has no control over. The legislation is the state is there, the state is legislation, so whatever. But certainly there's that sort of feeling, you know, in Ireland that those that contributed to a huge scale of it at the top end of the scale will be, you know. But having said that, the Irish, there's stuff going through the courts as we see every day. There's people being brought up, you know. Now in America, or in, you know, particularly in America, it's done a lot quicker. But the Americans do it their way, the Irish do it their way, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. You know, the Irish don't be in a hurry bringing in legislation, or even in less hurry, you know.
Yeah, but even the insolvency laws are different within different European countries. So,
yes,
you know, if you're if you've got out of your debt and in a position to re-establish maybe a bona fide business within Ireland, it's going to take, is it 12 years or something?
No, it was 12, and it's coming back, depending on the circumstances, it's coming back now to between 3 and 7. That's the sort of treated. Now in the UK it's 12 months. Full stop. 12 months, you know, if you have all in order and that your affairs is correct and all of that. So in Ireland it's coming somewhere minimum 3, maximum 7. That's the story. Well, it's back from 12. It was 12 for bankruptcy. That's what it was. So it's back now to be 3 and 7, depending on the circumstances and how well you perform. And you know, there's some people leaves it to somebody else to do and for the system to work it. Whereas if you get proactively involved yourself and move the thing forward and being seen to, because the trustee of a bankruptcy, he or she can only work with what they have.
Right.
So if they're looking
within the law,
as that, but even with the information that you feed into them. So if you do something and you do it promptly that they want in 2 months, well, they can deal with it. Whereas other people, it could take 10 months for it to come through the system.
Right.
So the sooner people get through that, the better. They're back contributing to society. Hopefully in a job, starting a business, paying
all the talks, is job creation and getting people back into employment. And some of the people that got into the difficulties, they were employer of hundreds, maybe thousands of people. And if they're given an opportunity to get back, if they have bona fide businesses, it means then that the employment cycle can improve a lot quicker. But while people say, they deserve the penalties that they're getting because a lot of subcontractors and things lost out. But if they're in a position to get people back into employment, should it not be forced through or?
Yes. Well, when you take, for example, the IB Bank, we just take that for an example. That was one of the biggest banks in the state, and supposedly the brains of the country was running it. It was audited, it was regulated or meant to be regulated, and it literally was wiped out. Literally. There's no shame in failing now in Ireland. They had all, and the people involved got pensions, they got their payoffs, and the bank is still paying the pensions for a business. And if that happened in the real world, you're literally gone out of business. So,
but that affected a lot of people because people had maybe lump sums for retirement or various other things,
in shares.
They were actually advised to put it in
very, very sad. Some of it is
state operation, like the banks and some of the other businesses that have folded.
So that's it's a fact of life. You get on with it. It's a bit like I do often compare it to playing a game of cards. Right. Number one, it depends on the hand you were giving. Right. And secondly, the boys with a bad hand, if they play it right, will get out of the game. And there's other people who say, well, look, this is a useless hand. I've only one card, good one, and 4 bad ones. But if you keep playing the hand of cards, you keep trying, you'll get a replacement, so to speak. That's what I compare it to from time to time.
Say the family home eviction thing, that's going to be, where people in Ireland you still hear them talking about 150 years ago and more.
Or even less.
How traumatic that can be.
Even less,
But it was so traumatic at the time. If it's going to happen again.
Well, number one, Brian, it's already happening.
All right.
It's already started and has been going on. Now, there's 2 types of a family home being repossessed. One where the family surrenders the home and moves on with their life. Even relationships breaking down, marriages breaking down, which is very, very sad. But there's other ones then where the banks take it. And there a recent article in a Sunday newspaper, I was doing research there earlier in the week, and the banks have lost, on average, 220,000, right? That was AIB lost 200, I think they repossessed 160 houses to date. Last year, and they lost 220,000 per house. Permanent TSB lost 170,000, and the Bank of Ireland have not revealed how much they just said they made enough to cover the provision, to meet with the provisions. So even taking that back of families is not the answer. But if there's nothing done, there has to be seen to be some attempt made to deal with it. It's absolutely.
What did they do with the whatever it was, 30 billion that they received from the state?
That's a very controversial.
Or is it? Was that not for some of those issues and to get their books right so that to be able to bear
absorb it? Yeah, it was to a degree, but they have it now, and the longer they're not going to be in a huge rush. Right, whilst it's going to happen, as every month or every year goes by, you're getting closer to it, the economy starting to move again. So they're in, if you go mad rush into it either, and the whole state, technically what the like Shane Ross is saying in the Sunday Independent, week in, week out, that if the banks dealt with the problems they have with mortgages at the moment, they'd need to be capitalised twice to what they have, recapitalised. That's how serious it is. So rushing into it,
But now, say things have changed, like in the penal times where people thrown out now with way the legislation is, people are going to have to be rehoused by
the state.
The state who would have financed the banks who are throwing them out. So
it's absolutely it's one of them things that there is no right answer to.
No, but is there no lateral thinking, or is there no like we're about to see the full picture? You know, just because it's a different department might be dealing with one and you know, or each.
I mean, that's what I'm hoping. You know, that's what I'm that's what my idea is. You know, that the people that have the home, and there's some people then in difficulty in family homes, and they literally have no incentive or no ability to, wrong to say no ability, but they just cannot handle the situation. So, I mean, the bank has the debt, you know, the only hope they have is a few bob, and there's other people then is very proactive, does a deal with the bank, pays a little, parks some of the debt, and are actively trying to generate. But if someone is doing absolutely nothing, you cannot blame the financial institution either.
Of course, yeah.
You know,
well, we say, you know, where you have been through different processes. You're dealing with people on a daily basis now, both in your research and now with the new website, and also that impact series that you're also getting associated with.
Yes.
Maybe, you know, you'll be able to talk about how people relate to you, you know, and you have the experience and how you can help. But that series, how important is that in getting things back?
Well, that is Ireland. It's a social. It's an impact series. It's for pitching ideas. Okay, and I'm pitching my website for it. That's what I'm working for, and that's where they pick a number of ideas that are addressing social issues in Ireland. And in my opinion, there is no greater social issue than house evictions and suicides, and that's what the financial thing is doing. Now, I'm involved pitching for that at the moment, and I'm out there. But it's amazing. There was research done recently there, very recently, an MRBI poll, and that 64% of people in Ireland with a debt problem are not aware of the new legislation. Not even aware of it. So, you know, but it's becoming a more talked about subject now than it was, because...
Well, you know, you'd mentioned the topic of suicides. Well, nobody likes talking about those type of things, and some of our other programmes have dealt with them. You know, it had So Sad in here on
great
a
work,
number of occasions. How would you feel that on the financial side of things, things can be put in place to maybe minimise those, or like, is that only one factor, or are there a number of other factors, and that's just the final straw?
Well, there is a number of factors. It's something, obviously, depression, you know, and it's not an area that I'm experienced in at all. But all I know is that financial problems in a house can start to, you know, if not addressed or not got hold of, can develop on and affect more than the actual person, because oftentimes it's the person that's the main breadwinner, or the person, i.e. me, that caused the problem, in inverted commas, in the household. You made the decisions to borrow the money and whatever. While you might be working through it, there's a side effect, whether it's your wife or your husband or vice versa, depending on who's involved.
There's actually more suicides than I think it's... I heard something like 10 a week, and they were talking about road deaths and how Ireland is now one of the safest countries in Europe for travelling on the roads. But this is now, you know, suicide for whatever reason is now on the rise.
It's dramatically. And there was earlier this week, I don't know whether you're aware of it, it was picked up in the media, but a councillor in Cork that had lost 2 family members to suicide. To highlight the issue, they put 2 dummy bodies hanging from a bridge outside Cork on Easter Monday. And got huge, and his attitude is, well, waking up, this is what it will be happening. It went, there was pluses and minuses.
You see the ads on the television for road deaths. There's some very graphic ads. Outline, you know, the impact it has on everybody's lives, you know, where people go into hospitals as a result of road traffic accidents. But if there were as graphic as scenes and talking to families, the impact that suicide has, both, we say, the likes of the organisations, like particularly So Sad, and a number of other organisations. I think maybe Aware might touch on that from depression, though. But should there be a stronger emphasis on giving them more support through the media, so that that message can get out a little bit
that there's more help, that there is help out there. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't, as one person that's affected in the financial and thankfully not from a mental point of view, you know, it's definitely, there's no use in blaming, you know, all the suicide rise in figures on the financial situation. There is other things at play, like unemployment. You know, it's a horrendous place. It's bad enough to be unemployed in your late 40s, early 50s, but to be unemployed with debt as well. It's a frightening scenario for any individual to be in, and there's tens of thousands of people. Very sadly in Ireland, I do say thankfully I have a job. I was able to go out and get a job. You know.
But say back to your own situation. You must talk to a lot of people. You get information from those because you know you have the experience. And how would you feel with the debt? .ie, you know, as being a resource for people to get information, to link with people.
Yes.
You know, deathrow.ie is the name of it, but what's now the development within that? Are you getting...
Well, I'm literally incredibly, the attitude is, from a point of view, getting help to put it on the road. Right. I'm funding it completely myself. The mental attitude in Ireland is people in debt have no money, don't bother with them. And still in all, they're expected to repay their debt. Right. My idea is, you know, hopefully, you know, it'll roll out this summer, right? And that, I mean, that there is going to be free there for someone to put up their pitch, put up their story under the pseudonym of a number. That's my idea.
So if you got the same percentage support as the banks got, you know, as a catalyst to you, you know, you wouldn't be looking for billions, but if you could get a similar, if they could have a similar approach, if they accept that they need an investment in the banks to get the difficulties over and get them refinanced, it's a pity that they can't apply the same principles.
Well, it doesn't literally, I have, you know, and the attitude, that is the attitude, but it still comes back to the same thing. Like, you have loads of debt advisors and the new insolvency legislation coming in, but with a lot of people, they're homing in on the debt. It's only, you can only spread out money if you have it.
The debt is a legacy of the past.
I know, but even to deal with it, you need to focus on generating income.
Oh yeah, but that's what I was trying to find. I was trying to make was a catalyst. Would say even a small financial catalyst to try and get over the hump, as they say. You know, so that you're able to develop something that's more positive and to get in a better frame of mind. Number one, and then to be able to improve the recovery. Maybe speed up the recovery.
That's what I'm hoping. You know, that people in Cork will link on to people in Cork, vice versa. But it must come from the person that's in trouble. They must put up their hand first, because the other person can't see them. You know, if their hand up, you can decide, well, yes, I'll help that person. They've knocked me door. But if the person doesn't knock your door, and there's only two, I do say there's very simple description. There is only two types of people on the island, Brian.
All right.
Those that are financially challenged and those that are not.
All right.
You're either one or the other.
Right.
And the financially challenged need help, but must look for help. And if they don't look for it, well, they're not going to get it.
Unfortunately, now we're running out of time, Hugh. So maybe just for the moment, we'll concentrate on your specifics, and maybe you direct to the camera how you would like people to work with you and to get things moving. So maybe if you want to direct to the camera.
Thanks. I would definitely. The website is called deathrow.ie, and it's hopefully planned to launch in early July, and it's currently will be shortly in beta forum, and email hugh@deathrow.ie. And now, having said that, I'm not a financial advisor. I do say I'm planning to connect people. That's my idea. I've did this myself. I'm up and running, generating an income, not enough of income to deal with the debts, but hopefully, you know, and the new insolvency legislation is still in abeyance and they're still waiting, but it is going to happen this summer. It's on the way, and anybody that's in debt that doesn't get involved and do something about it, it's going to arrive at their door, be it in a week, a month, a year.
So you're sort of flagging it in advance?
Well in advance, yeah.
Well, that's fantastic, and it was great to be able to talk to you again, and we enjoyed the time that you spent on Cavan TV, actually starting the Business and Enterprise show, and we've gone from success to success. And I would like to again send
best wishes
to Columns Care, everyone in Columns Care, and hope to see you next week. And that's it from Business and Enterprise and from Cavan TV, Ireland's first and only live web TV channel. And it's Brian Daly signing off from Business and Enterprise.